And we're live. Welcome back to our third installment of Operation Impart. For today's installment, we are going for bug out gear and bug out essentials. But before that, we're going to get on to some news with Jeremy and Nate about California buyback program. And Nate and Jeremy, if you want to take that away.
Yeah, so this is based out of California. It is called the California Gun for Gas. So really what it is based on which firearm you're trading in. They're giving you a prepaid Visa meant for gas. The handguns, they are a $75 Visa. No, not handguns. So bolt action rifles and shotguns, they're giving you a $75 Visa card for them. And then for handguns and assault rifles, they're giving you a $200 prepaid Visa and an iPad. And that's for each and every gun, not just for all of them. So if you bring in 10 guns, it's $200 and an iPad for every gun. For all you high point boys out there with your carbines, now might be the time to actually go get a real AR.
Oh, man. Yeah, I was reading the article, and there was a point that stuck out to me, and I'm going to read it. Public interest in the gun buyback program was so high, police ran out of gas cards within the first 45 minutes and had to end the event an hour early. However, they continued to accept firearms.
But, if I lived in California and I had to pay $8 a gallon for gas, this might be incentive. You give me $75, I can put a whole 3 gallons in my car. That's...
What is that, 3 days?
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky.
Look,
not if you're commuting in LA.
my only gimmick with this whole thing is that you could rob them, or you could rob people of their gas and still have a gun left over and get more gas with a gun.
Right.
People are just so hopped up on bank cards right now, especially.
We are not saying to rob people.
Yeah, I was about to say, let the record show we do not condone robbery.
Just
an example here.
Thank you. It's a robbery.
I'll take that, please and thank you.
I don't know.
Bananas to me.
I find it to be a bit. I find it to be theft when you show up to get gas for your gun and they're like, no bank cards. You don't get extra money. All you get is like cheap gas.
Card.
Right. Just.
Well, my
Walmart's
thing
greeting
for
card.
it is that who's defining what an assault rifle is?
Sacramento, California. I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, who's
handguns?
I think my rifle that's a bolt action, that's a 22. I mean, I think that is an assault rifle. So I think I should be getting $200 and an iPad.
Right?
What do I gotta do? Shoot somebody in front of you and then give it to you? Now it's assault?
Just.
Well, I mean, if a completed lower is classified as an assault weapon, I mean, you could just turn in the fucking lower itself.
Yeah, the only thing that classifies a firearm is the lower receiver. That's the only part of a gun that is considered a
Even
firearm.
when it's only, 80% complete, it's considered a firearm?
Can you imagine getting like a hand-me-down gun from World War II and then trading it for an iPad just to play Angry Birds, not Happy Birds.
Happy Birds?
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest problem with any gun buyback, because it's also opinion based.
Yeah.
Like, who's defining what, and we'll give you X amount of dollars because
that was another
we
thing.
feel like they're unsafe. I mean, this is literally it is the definition of disarming people. Is all it is.
It's theft. It's like, here's a commodity that goes away in a week, and for something that you could protect yourself with.
Yeah, and I mean, Louder with Crowder did a really good skit on that. He had a whole bunch of guns, like cable tied to a table, and he had people pick out which one was the scariest looking gun, and they all picked, a blacked out 22 long rifle, and then asked the people, hey, which bullet goes to this one, do you think? And just because of the look of the firearm, the assault rifle styling, they all picked a super big round, and of course it was always, deer hunting rifle, a bolt action, and they're like, "Oh, really? I didn't know that." Like, no shit, you didn't know that because you don't do your research. You just throw out random shit.
Right. Literally, all you have to do to intimidate people is paint it black, put on a couple rails, put a sight on there, and a flashlight, and people are scared.
Yeah.
Airsoft
And
Pec
it-
15.
Just lack of knowledge is really all it breaks down to.
You could do that to a Kentucky, muzzle loader, and people would be scared. It's like
Right.
you attached a grenade to a stick.
And let's just take a look at history. I mean, there was a gun buyback in the 90s, there was a gun buyback in the 2000s, and it didn't stop anything.
No.
All it did was take away people's firearms. So at what point is everybody just going to be like, hey, what is the point of this? Because we've done this twice now in the past 30 years and nothing's changed. So maybe it's time to
Yeah.
start looking at different alternatives.
Right.
That's our big first news article for the day. We will use that to roll into basic bug out gear. So we're going to cover pretty much everything here, going anywhere from what backpack you should use to carry all the gear, all the way down to what navigation device you should use, and of course the firearm side of it all as well. We're going to roll right into backpacks first. That's going to be covered by Sabian.
So with backpacks, like everything, it's going to be kind of mission based. We're going to kind of break it down like Pacific Northwest, 3-4 days, maybe a little bit shorter. Just out in the wilderness, out in the mountains, with all the elements out there. There's a few backpacks. You can go either a backpack or a rucksack. There's a few pros and cons to either one. Backpacks usually, you got your Vortex or your Verdicts. You got your Ebelstock for your backpacks. You got Celtic Coyote, all those types of brands, which are all good, reputable brands made for this thing. That's a good point of you should always go out and buy. If this is something you want to be prepared for, something you want to do just to train, you want to go out there and get good equipment. You don't want to go get some Chinese knockoff off Amazon to spend, $50 on it. It's going to break. It's not going to hold up. It's going to feel uncomfortable, stuff like that. A really important thing with backpacks is to have multiple mounting points to your body. A skeleton framed, internal framed, is usually best because it's going to be able to be more rigid. It is going to weigh a little bit more, which is going to suck, but you're going to be able to support more of that to your body because you want it to be one with you, so it's not as much weight on you. So obviously most backpacks have straps over your shoulder, but you also want to have kidney straps, which will go around your kidneys or your waist. And I'll grab my example real quick. So down here, these ones are very small. This is a Vertex Gamut. This is one I carry every day. Has quite a few pockets. Not really quite sure what the liter is, or the cubic inches, but quite a few pockets to be able to store stuff. You got your quick access stuff, which is important. I have medical stuff, Tylenol, stuff like that. Got immediate access for, GPS, radio, stuff like that. And then you got your big internal side, which opens up clamshell style, which will allow you to pack whatever you need, and then also be able to pull it all the way out and get to whatever you packed in the very bottom. Which organization of your pack is going to be, key. You always want stuff you're going to need readily available up on top, and then stuff you're going to use, night times, sleeping bags, stuff like that, which we'll get into later on. The Vertex Gamut runs roughly $200 MSRP. A little pricey. Again, you're kind of paying for the reputation. You're paying for that quality. They are very comfortable. I run mine sometimes as an everyday carry. Personally, with a firearm in it, 3 mags, all that stuff, and it's still comfortable to wear. With that kidney strap, I can, hike it up and put a lot of that pressure on my kidneys instead of just on my back and weighing me down, which is going to be a big deal. Walking up, down mountains, walking through, over and under stuff. It's gonna put you're gonna have to try it out for yourself, and see what works best for you on tightening up your straps on your shoulders compared to your kidneys or vice versa. It's all gonna be personal preference, but having those two options to take the load off your back at times is gonna be very good in the long run, mostly for a 2, 3, 4 day out in the wilderness.
I really like that you pointed out the weight of the backpack. Going through all this stuff, there's going to be times where we're going to point out lightweight and efficient items, and then items that weigh a little bit more. Obviously, I believe the backpack is one of the spots that you shouldn't skimp on the weight of it, because that's going to hold the structure of everything else.
Yeah. And again, there's a statistic that it's like per 1 ounce after walking so many miles ends up being like 50 pounds added to your back, just 1 ounce. So any amount of material that is unnecessary is going to add up in the long run. Maybe you don't need all that molly on there. Maybe you don't need all those straps on there. Maybe you don't need to exclude or include certain things that aren't going to be for your mission that you're trying to accomplish. Along with that, you got some kind of bigger, more efficient than a backpack, because backpacks usually aren't waterproof, and that's going to be a big thing, mostly in the Pacific Northwest, being a wet, swampy kind of area. So you can always go with rucksacks. You can go with your Alice's, kind of like the military uses, which holds a lot and are relatively waterproof. Nothing is going to be perfectly waterproof. I don't want you to go online and be like, oh, waterproof backpacks, and then spend $300 on a backpack. It's eventually water's going to get in there. You're going to want to find ways to mitigate as much water getting into your backpack. So you got your big packs, like I was saying, your Alice, your military Molly 2 rucksacks from Army Rucksack. Those guys are going to be pretty big. I believe 4,000 cubic inches, which is a pretty big pack. It's not super big compared to other ones out in the market, but that's enough to get you through about 2-3 days, and having everything that is essential. We talked about the Alice's and stuff like that. You can go, you could even use a JanSport, but again, you got to realize how well is that going to, stand up to the conditions. How well is that going to feel carrying for 20 miles? How, all that, there's going to be so much built into that. You just got to kind of weigh your options, You could even go with 2 packs, have one for, I need this pack to survive out here for this long, but I need a smaller pack to take for reconnaissance, and use that for recon way off in the distance, so you can bring a smaller pack of essential stuff just to get you through your mission, but keep you kind of grounded at your base camp. You do have MT Assembly military rucksack from PAL's Webbing Rucksacks. This backpack can carry up to 70 pounds-ish, which is, that would suck to carry, but still, it's a great pack. It also allows you to store a water, like a camel pack in there, to stay hydrated, which is going to be very important, which we'll talk about later in our discussion.
How much is this?
The PALS pack?
Mm-hmm.
Let me see real quick for you guys. Just get a little MSRP. Roughly like $339.
Gotcha.
showing on our good old Amazon. Um, that's roughly about $339. Um, so it does come with the hydration bladder, so that's cool because when spending that $340 price tag, you're at least getting quite a few things. That is a waterproof rucksack. So that's you're gonna have to spend that extra dough to kind of buy once cry once. Instead of buying all these different packs that you think might work and stuff like that. Just go out there and do the research on your own. What we say isn't going to be the end all be all, but there's a lot of options out there, and there's a lot of people that do a lot of reviews on this and research on this stuff.
That's really a good point. Really, all we're doing is giving a starting point here, what we think and what our opinions are, and some facts along the way. But really, the biggest thing about Bugout is doing your research and buying what fits you best. We're
Right.
all
You
gonna have
don't
our
want to
own
just
real
go out
personal
and
preferences.
spend like $2,000 on a backpack and not
like it.
and not like it.
Or even like he
Or
said,
ever really need
the one that Sabian has, what it was $230.
About there, yeah, after tax.
About there. We're not saying go spend that $230 without doing your research, because if you buy it and you hate it, you're out that $230.
Yeah.
So make
Right.
sure you're doing your research. There's also a lot of outfitters that you can go to, try these backpacks on, make sure they're comfortable, and they have the rigidity or the fluidness that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Another thing to consider is where you're at environment-wise. So you might want something that's super light, but then you realize, well, I live in the middle of nowhere on top of a hill. There's lots of rain and lots of, I guess, environment before I could even get to a town or civilization. You don't just, like Sabe was saying, you don't want to just, you kind of want to pick and choose your options, but also like tailor it to you. Like, even though you might like the waterproof of this bag, you might want to consider the spaciousness of the other.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's going to be other options to keep backpacks waterproof, which we'll get to later on in the video. There are other options to keep packs waterproof and camouflage. That is going to be a later discussion as well. I do like the Vertix. The bag I have also allows a pouch on the back for a plate. So you can, and they're specially designed plates for that backpack that will withstand rifle round ammunition. So that could also be part of something you consider. If, hey, maybe I can deal with a smaller size backpack, still fit my essentials in there and everything I need, but I also want this little added protection on top of it, mostly if you're not going to be running a plate carrier, doing reconnaissance or whatever the mission type is for you. That is an option. You can still have that, and they only weigh about, again, ounces are going to add up, but 4 ounces for a good ceramic plate to be put in your bag is pretty good, and it's going to add a stiffness that will allow that bag to have that rigidity and stuff like that. I like Verdicts personally. They're not the greatest. They do have their flaws, but again, it's going to be towards you. I'm a smaller figured individual, so I'm not going to go buy a huge 14,000 cubic inch rucksack because it's not going to feel very well on my back compared to the others in the group, where they can get away with carrying a bigger pack and more stuff in it. Hi. But going on to that, we are going to go into sleeping gear with Nate and what's going to be best for you to be able to withstand those 3 days out in the wilderness.
Right, and sleeping gear is a very crucial step that I think a lot of people don't put a lot of thought into. There's multiple aspects. It's not as simple as, let me just grab a sleeping bag out of the garage and that'll do the job. A lot of our gear recommendations are really going to surround around that Pacific Northwest environment and what we deal with up there because we're all familiar with that. Um, the first part we'll roll into is what you're sleeping on, the sleeping pad. So really, there's two different types. There's going to be a foam closed cell pad. Those are going to weigh a little bit more, but they're going to be more durable. Typically, your general weight of a closed cell or a foam pad is going to be right around that 14 ounce to 2 pound mark. Is about where they're going to weigh, whereas a inflatable pad is going to weigh closer to that 8 to 12 ounce mark when it's fully compressed, and it takes up less space. But the problem with that is if you put an inflatable one down on the ground and it takes a thorn or a stick or anything like that, puts a hole in it, your sleeping pad is now useless, and now you're sleeping on the bare ground. Nobody wants to sleep on the bare ground. It sucks. Um, so when it really breaks down to that, I think foam pads are the way to go. You're gonna add a little bit of weight. My personal recommendation on it is going to be a Thermarest Ridge Rest Classic. It's a 6 foot long pad, so your average person, you're going to fit just fine on that pad. And then it's 3/4 of an inch thick, but it's foam, so it's very rugged. It's going to provide you with that cushion off of the normal ground. You don't have to worry as much about cleaning up the space. And it only weighs 14 ounces, so it's coming in at less than a pound. Really, that Pacific Northwest kind of climate, that's really all you're going to need is that 3/4 of an inch for the most part. You're not going to have too many times you have to sleep on a hill angled like this. That's not really going to happen. It's going to be comfortable and get the job done. But there's multiple different options. If inflatable works well for you, let's say you're down in Nevada where you're really in the desert, inflatable is going to be the way to go. You can air it up real quick. It's going to provide a little bit more cushion. It's going to be more lightweight and more compact. And you don't have to worry about sticks and thorns and stuff like that on the ground when you lay it down. That's where it comes into knowing your own climate and kind of what you're dealing with there.
Okay, so I actually have a question about sleeping bags because I was told this, but I wasn't entirely sure, and I haven't looked it up. Maybe you know, maybe that the number rated for sleeping bags is when it's basically completely useless. Like this is below 15 degrees. You know, you'll see sleeping bags in Walmart that say below 15 or
Right. So it's called an RA number. And it's from a 0 to a 4. So 0 to 1 is based for more warmer climate's kind of what you're going to get in the south of the United States. That's going to be where you're going to want a 0 to 1. It's going to be a lot more lightweight, a lot more compact because it doesn't have to worry about keeping your body heat as much because it doesn't drop as low. Usually those only have a good temperature to about 40 degrees Fahrenheit before they are deemed useless, is about their max range. Then you have a 2 to 4 RA level, which is good to 20 is its limit. It's deemed useless at 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Um, and then your pad plays into that as well. So your sleeping pad, not the bag, the pad has an RA number as well. So the one that I put down was a 1.7, but it'll be combined with a sleeping bag. So a 1.7 is good to 37 degrees Fahrenheit.
I think.
But so that's.
Sorry, I was gonna say. I think one advantage over foam. I'm not sure. You could correct me if I'm wrong, but foam in the Pacific Northwest area is gonna kind of add. It's gonna possibly pick up moisture. Am I right? So that could be an advantage with inflatables being a what.
It could, but then that also comes down to buying a quality pad.
Yeah.
The biggest thing with sleeping gear, it's really going to be the only aspect of your bug out gear where to get something top notch, you're not looking at $3, $4, $5, $600. Top notch is $50 to $150. So, for instance, the pad that I put down was, I think I forgot to document it. I want to say it was $39.99, but in the climate that we were in, it would have done just fine. The closed cell pad, it also has a polyurethane wrapping around it, so it's meant to keep out the moisture.
Okay.
But there are cheap ones that you can buy that are 10, 15, $20. They don't have that polyurethane wrapping around them. It's not going to help keep out the moisture. It will take that up, mildew, mold, and hold it in and make it wet. Wet equals cold. So that is something to keep in mind when you're getting into those colder climates.
Cold equals death. Remember that. The biggest in the heat, you can always take clothing on. I mean, a lot of people say you can always put clothing on in the winter, stuff like that. In the heat, the most you got to worry about is dehydration, um, stuff like that. But in the cold, once your core temperature drops and you get hyperthermia, you are dying. I mean, there's no way around that. You can kind of get away from heat with water and shaded areas, but when it's cold, you will die. Um, and then another thing I was kind of looking on with sleeping is like hammocks and waterproof hammocks. Um, that could be an option, if you're more uh, like a slender person like me, or I mean, they have pretty huge hammocks and pretty stout hammocks nowadays for $200 at most. That come with the waterproof tarp, camouflage, all that stuff. Which could be an option for you if you're not afraid of heights, or you could even just at least keep yourself elevated off the ground a foot, which will keep that moisture that is obtained through the ground off of you, because that's the biggest point, is to keep the elements off of you.
Right, that is
Right.
an
The
option as well. A hammock.
geothermic heat of the ground,
Um,
or
the
lack thereof, could.
the the problem with
That's
a
what
hammock
drains you the most.
is that you have to be in a climate where a hammock can be supported.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in somewhere
Crazy.
where trees are scarce and few between, you're not going to have a good spot to string it up. You also want to make sure you have a good hammock if you do choose to go that route. For a hammock, as a bug out gear, it's going to be small, compact. Usually hammocks are weighing in at 2 to 3 pounds. So that's something to keep in mind as well, because they're meant to be so rigid because they're holding your whole body weight off the ground. So they take more material, they weigh more, meaning more weight in your bug out pack. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But if you're living somewhere, that is going to keep you off the ground. It's going to keep the moisture off of your kit and all your gear. Um, and it's also going to put you away from any insects or bugs or anything that's on the ground,
They do have
limiting your chance of diseases.
they do have really good hammocks out right now that come with mosquito nets already built in. It's pretty much an in the sky tent. I mean, essentially, it's in the ground tent, or above the ground tent. Um, so that's really cool. You can keep it waterproof. You can keep it bug proof. All that type of stuff. Those ones are a little bit lighter, but they do have a frame, like Nate was saying. So you are going to have that little weight difference that come with it because of the frame.
Right. And the biggest thing here is I also didn't include a tent in any of this. In my own kit, I wouldn't be running a tent. The reason being is they weigh a lot and they take up a lot of space, is really what it is. And we all know that when you take a tent out, it takes forever to get it into the same goddamn bag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Compression
So,
compression bags are very important for your sleeping bag, to be able to get that down and locked in and stayed in place with a compression bag. So that's always something that you should consider, is because you got to fit all this into whatever bag you have, whether small or big. So getting stuff as small as possible and compact as possible is going to be hard at times, especially a tent or a
Right.
sleeping bag.
now I do know that they make small, they're considered pop-up tents, which mean they don't take tent poles. You fold them up real tight, and then when you're ready for them, you take them out of the bag, and it pops up. The problem with a pop-up tent is it will work, but temporarily and in a minimalistic use. Rain, they don't stand up good to that. They don't stand up good to moisture. It's really to just kind of enclose yourself, is really all they're good for. So, in the aspect of I'm looking at how much weight am I putting in my kit and how effective is the gear that I'm putting the weight in for, a pop-up tent is really going to be the only one you're going to want to use, and it's not effective enough for me to justify another 3 pounds on my back. Is really what it breaks down to. Rolling into sleeping bags. Sleeping bags are going to be a little bit different than sleeping pads. This is really going to vary. If you want something high quality, you are looking at hundreds of dollars. The reason being is it's going to fully enclose your body. The more you pay, the more comfortable you're going to be, the more better and durable it's going to be. They make, I know they start these sleeping bags out around $100, $150. That's going to be more of your RA number of 0 to 2. They're going to be really lightweight, minimalistic, not as much material to hold in the body heat because you're meant to be in a warmer climate. And then they can run. I've seen these sleeping bags running all the way up to $900 to $1,000. If
Jeez.
you're living somewhere where in the winter
Christ.
you're dropping down to 0 degrees or into the negatives, you're looking at $1,000. And we have to accept that fact because you need a sleeping bag that can sustain and hold in your body heat at negative 15 degrees.
Yeah.
That's just something you have to be aware of. So my personal pick off of that Pacific Northwest climate, most of the time we're getting down at the lowest 15, 20 degrees is about where we're dropping to.
Yeah.
So I went a level 3.2 sleeping bag. It's called a Thermarest Hyperion brand. It is a 3.2. It comes in at $4.99 for the sleeping bag. It's a full enclosure sleeping bag with a pillow built into it. It weighs 1 pound and 14 ounces. So in the term of sleeping bags, it's pretty lightweight. So between the sleeping bag and my sleeping pad, I'm coming in at just over 4 pounds of weight. So it's a very minimalistic use on the weight aspect, but it's going to do the job for what I need it to do. And then along with that, having the pillow built into the sleeping bag, you don't have to worry about anything for your head support or anything like that. It's all taken care of in one.
Does that
500 bucks.
sleeping bag come with a bibby sack, or is it just the bag?
Um,
That's actually a very good question.
that is a very good question.
Yeah, I remember when I was in military school, we were doing our team building exercises.
Mhm.
Fucking woke up in the middle of the night. It was just downpouring, and I woke up and just in this giant puddle because somebody didn't secure the side of the tent correctly. And the only thing that actually kept me dry was my bibby sack.
Right, so these do come with a baby sack, so that is included. So which honestly I would expect it when you're getting ready to spend that $500. Um, and Thermarest is a great company for the product that they make. They do purely based on survival and bug out gear, sleeping bags, sleeping pads, stuff like that. Keep you comfortable out there. They, as far as the brand scale goes, they are one of the top ones. That's just something to keep in mind when you're looking at this gear and pricing it out. It's going to cost a lot of money, but when we're talking about your life's at stake, because that's really what it is. At night, your biggest threat is going to be getting frostbite or hypothermia because of how cold it is. Uh, make sure that you don't cut costs here.
Yeah, because that's a really big issue. Is most people nowadays want to go cheap, and some of this stuff you can't because
Yeah,
it's kind of it's
it's
stuff.
just as important as
Yes.
like most of the other things. Like
Yeah.
firearms and sleep are kind of juggling
Right.
their importance is obviously situational, but when it comes to having both and maintaining both, you don't want like a really crappy gun and a really crappy sleeping bag.
Yeah.
You kind of want to have both.
Yeah.
Right, because if you sleep like crap and you're cold and you're tired and you're wet, that affects your focus and your awareness of your surroundings. That affects your physical and mental aptitude. It affects everything. So that is definitely one of the crucial aspects of all of this is making sure that the sleeping is the one time you should be 100% comfortable.
Yeah. Sleep is very important. Obviously, we have studies done with the Russian sleep experiment. All that stuff. Sleep is going to be the most important because that is what prepares you for the next day, keeps your mind, going. It's going to keep your body going. I mean, rejuvenation of muscles, all that stuff is going to play a role in, you know, these 3-4 days of being out in the wilderness, which is going to be probably the hardest thing that you or many people have done, going out in the wilderness like that. So it's going to be hard on your body, mostly if you don't do it often. If you don't train very often, it's going to be super hard on your body to go from possibly extreme heats in the daytime to extreme colds at night because you're in the mountains, which is possible here in Washington. Um, so it's kind of gonna be a thing you gotta watch for because your mind's the biggest weapon you have. You know.
Right. I think you really hit the nail on the head right there. And so from there, back from the sleeping gear, we're gonna roll right into clothing. Clothing is also a very essential aspect of all things considered. Jeremy's gonna go ahead and cover this topic.
So clothing doesn't necessarily matter as far as like brand names go. I found that out in like the first 20 minutes of research last night. People like to get into, you know, like insulating puffy North Face apparel or large pocket cargo pants for carrying all kinds of items, but most of the research that I've done, it actually comes down to material. The material of what you're wearing matters. It also depends on the mission. Do you want to be quiet or do you want to be loud? Do you want to be waterproof? Do you want to be insulated? Because you could be waterproof, but that material's so thin that you're cold. So it just doesn't matter. And the two things that the most was the competing differences between wool and polyester. Wool, this is kind of a short list, but wool is warmer even when wet, but it's heavier. Like it's the fibers are hollow, but they're more bound. So you're dealing with a little bit more weight, and that also depends on the type of clothing and how big you are as a person. So that can vary from, I don't know, like 2 to 4 pounds, and that's just my size. I was looking into wool pants, like full-on wool everything pants, just 2 pocket, straight leg, everything, and that was around like 4 pounds. You almost have to wear suspenders with them, but yeah, it's really just where does your mission lie, and it also depends on like what location, what environment, how dry it is, what time of the year, and these are things you're gonna have to battle. In my personal opinion, which is not a very good one because I haven't done a whole lot of camping in my life, and the ones that I have, it's more like been glamping. So, in my personal opinion, you should have like a little of both. Maybe a very waterproof polyester or nylon North Face, something like a windbreaker, but also having multiple layers, like a heavy shirt or a lighter shirt. Something that you can take off and on. They discussed layers because trapping in water, but when, I don't know, when you get into like wools and polyesters, it's mostly just a moisture battle too. Wool can be more expensive and polyesters can be cheaper, and in some cases they actually flip-flop depending on what article of clothing you're wearing. The main few that I have, like as far as like a 3-day excursion into the woods, as far as like being light, is having a light shirt, a heavy shirt. That could be more of a polyester. I guess depending on your size, I don't know what you would consider light or heavy. That's kind of just up to you. But having long johns, that is more of like a, not like a, I guess it's more like a spandex material.
Polyester.
Or
That
thermal
actually,
based.
Yeah.
that actually really helps. Like I wear skinny jeans, and in the wintertime, even when I was working outside for maybe 20 to 30 minutes just doing some work, I'd have long johns underneath, and that kept me fairly warm. So having long johns, wool socks, multiple layers of either pants or shirts or jackets. How you gauge how much you want to bring is up to you. I don't want to say, hey, here's a list of things that, would work for the average person, because they don't. If you're carrying like everything wool you're gonna just weigh yourself down. So you kind of have to tailor it to yourself. Apparently, that's how clothing is. Most apparels is that you have to tailor it to you. If
Yeah.
you don't, you're just gonna end up wearing everything wool. You're gonna be hot. You can't move. You'll be warm when it gets cold, but I mean, what's that gonna do you when you wake up and it's hot and you're just sweating on the inside? You're gonna be losing lots of water, dehydration. So it has to be relatively comfortable.
Yeah, comfortability is going to be an aspect of it. I do believe personally that you should always carry a spare set of stuff: shirt, pants, definitely socks, because obviously your head and your feet, everyone knows, is like the biggest part that lets heat out. Merino wool socks, from the research I've done, are super good with not really keeping in the water, but still keeping you warm. And cottons usually will retain water for a long time compared to a polyester, 100% polyester like an Under Armour, or the long johns. They have long john kits 32 degrees, which probably has the same rating as the sleeping bags Nate was talking about. But those I wore those all winter last winter underneath my pretty baggy pants, and those kept me extremely warm. They're, like you said, they're polyester spandex kind of styling. They have an upper and a lower, and that one keeps you warm, but doesn't trap in the moisture from your sweat, doesn't trap in the moisture from the air, stuff like that, which is going to be a very big factor that you're going to be fighting mostly in the Pacific Northwest during winter times, or fall, stuff like even spring. It's a very wet. We're very wet for about 8 months out of the year. So that being said, you want to make sure you can keep most of that water off you as much as possible. And like Jeremy is saying, keep two different types. You never know what days are going to change. Maybe one day it's super sunny and warm. Washington does that. Super sunny and warm, and then the next day is pissing rain all day.
Yeah, maintaining your body heat. Like, you don't want to be hiking and just overheat yourself because you're wearing too many layers. Having multiple layers means you can shed or gain different layers depending on.
Yeah.
And I think you really hit it with the spandex part of it. I mean, spandex type material is 100% the way to go as an undergarment.
Yeah.
That's what I got on right now.
I personally own several pairs, even for my legs. I mean, it's going to be the utmost, that final bottom layer that's touching your skin should be a spandex type material, just because it's so good at repelling water and not letting it soak through as easy.
Even drying.
And and it dries faster than cotton, and it doesn't trap in the water from your own person. Because, I mean, we're all going to sweat while walking. Even if it's cold outside, you're going to sweat. It just happens. It's going to be really good at keeping that water moving and getting off your body, and it won't stay in the clothing so much. Like, you sweat in cotton, it sticks to your clothes. It starts getting uncomfortable. Spandex isn't going to be or polyesters, spandex aren't going to be like that. They're going to give you a little bit more room to literally breathe in.
It's like your girlfriend and wife, you need to own a couple pairs of leggings as well. Okay, it's a necessity. Keep
Go to
them
your
in the
local
closet.
Lululemon.
Nate's a cross-dresser. Let it be known in the podcast.
Get your ass. That's what I wear underneath everything.
Actually, speaking of men and women, there are also different colors to consider. This is the one thing I was thinking of, which will bridge with camo later on, is don't. It depends on your mission, but if your mission is to not be found, which should be in mind, if something were to happen.
In the case
Either
of
you.
Bugout.
Right. If you don't want to be found, don't get your bright blue North Face, windbreaker, because that'll be the biggest marker. Try to find something within gray tones, green tones, possibly even tan, but tan in the Pacific Northwest is kind of, especially in wooded areas, it's
More
very
like
easy to
coyote
spot
brown
you.
than a tan.
That's really where it breaks down to knowing your climate, Pacific Northwest, you can get away with a black, a dark gray, a green, something that blends into the surroundings. I keep on
Right.
going back to Nevada because I know Nevada. If you're in Nevada, tan is the way to go. Don't fucking wear green. Don't wear black. Don't wear gray. You'll stick out like a sore thumb. Tan everything.
Hmm.
But it's really knowing your climate. But yeah, don't go out there in your bright blue, bright red, bright pink, whatever.
Bright white.
Right. Your
Leave
neon
it
colors,
alone.
you don't want to look like you're a hunter.
I mean,
Right.
unless
Your
it's
cast.
unless it's snowing, I'll retract my statement on the bright white. Unless it's snowing out, there's gonna be camo for that. But
That's true, especially in the Pacific Northwest.
the biggest thing with, well, I won't dive too much into it, but the biggest thing is to break down and take the features of a human and hide it. So you want to hide yourself as much as possible because us humans know what humans look like. We can spot a human from another side of the mountain just because we have evolved and trained ourselves to know what we look like. So, that being said, we'll dive into a little bit more camouflage, but
And your base layers matter.
base
Yes.
layers matter. And always keeping extra stuff matters. You gotta have something that you can get your wet clothes because eventually you'll get wet in the climate like that. To get your wet clothes off you and new clothes on you.
Keeping extras too. Extras socks in case they get wet. That's a big deal. Don't get trench foot.
Multiple socks. I mean, 2, 3,
Double up.
four pairs if you can, dude. Socks are amazing.
Don't play games with your socks.
If they start getting wet, take them off, put new ones on, put those somewhere where they can dry. Bam, keep going. Whenever you get a chance, if you're like at a watering hole getting some water and you know you're okay, you and your buddy are switching off, looking around and making sure everything's good, take your socks off, switch them out. Your feet will love you way more. You'll love yourself way more when you don't have swamp foot,
Right. You don't want to be peeling layers of the pads of your foot off because you
Right.
decided to bring.
I mean, think about it. If you have a hard day at work and you get home and you take your boots or your shoes off and your socks are wet, what is your first instinct?
Take
Change
I'm
them.
them
taking these goddamn socks off.
Yeah. That's
That should be the same mindset when your socks get wet while you're out in the woods. They get wet, take the goddamn socks off.
Lowers the risk of infection.
Yep.
Right.
All right.
So on from there, we will be going into ways to stay.
Perfect segue.
Yeah, we'll be going into ways to stay dry and forms of fire and ways to make fires. Connor will be talking on these two subjects, and I'll pass it on to Connor.
Yeah, so all the ways that I've found either stay dry or stay warm and start fires, build yourself a shelter. If you don't know how to do that, revert back to what Nate said. Get yourself like one of those smaller pop-up tents. What was the name of it?
It's just that's what it's called, a pop-up tent.
Pop-up tent. All right.
Yep. It just doesn't take any poles. It's
But
just
yeah, that's
straight pop-up.
what I feel is number one in my book. Getting yourself a shelter,
A base
especially
camp.
once there's, yeah, especially if you're spending more than one night out there. Yeah. So for fire starters, got a couple examples.
And a shelter is important, If
In my book, it's most important, other than water.
you should know your area. You should know where you're needing to go. In the case of a bug out, you should already have a spot picked out in your mind. This is my primary base camp spot that I'm going to make.
Yeah, because when it comes down to, I mean, one, you'll know the area you want to go to, and typically you should know the surrounding areas for a few miles just to be safe and just have that knowledge of like, this is where I can go for food, this is where I can go for water, stuff like that.
Yeah. So one option you have for fire starters is your ferro rods. I got mine with my Gerber. Just sits right in the sheath, which is fucking great. Sticks together. That way, you always have it on you. Another way is your flint strikers, also on one of my knives. Very simple. Obviously, best way start a fire, keep a lighter on you. I mean, that should always be in somebody's bug out gear, whether it's one of those little butane lighters or one of your plasma lighters. I preferably would use a plasma lighter. Rechargeable, longer lasting, lightweight.
They also don't allow, you don't have to worry so much about wind or water with plasma lighters. Of course, if your flint in your lighter gets wet, shit like that, it's not going to work, and then you're kind of screwed.
And unlike butane, it's not an explodable ordnance that's in your back.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right, it's not going to just break because it's plastic and just get everywhere. It's plasma. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a battery-operated tool.
And they have solar panel plasma lighters that will recharge on their own, which is, a plus side because now you don't have to worry so much. There's always going to be UV rays coming from the sky at some point in the day. So that will allow you to always have a fully charged plasma lighter that you don't have to worry about windage, water, shit like that.
Yeah. Another thing that I keep in my bag personally, fire fuel. That way you don't have to use as much wood. Just throw one of these bricks on, it'll keep it burning all night, all the way up until you wake up. And going back to go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just want to interrupt you for a second, and I want to thank Alice, Commander Root, Emma, Paula, Sophia, Toothick, and Valentina for joining the podcast tonight. We appreciate all of you. Make sure you guys are commenting, letting us know what you think.
Hey, what geez. All right.
Now,
Going back to what those other three were saying, changing your socks, really important. So for when you are sleeping, what I used to do, hand warmers. Throw them in your boots and your socks. Keep your feet dry and warm at all times. That is going to be your number one, trying to think of the word, adversity for going against the cold, basically. Oh shit.
Yeah, personally, the only thing that gets me with water, like when it's raining outside, I don't care if my back is soaked. I don't care about nothing. My feet are soaked. I'm pissed, dude.
My whole day is ruined.
It's
when
ruined.
My feet are wet.
It's just, it sucks so much to have swampy feet all day long. Mostly with the profession I'm in right now. It's all day long, and halfway through I'm like, dude, I need new fucking socks. At work I changed my socks because it gets too much to where, like, dude, my feet hurt because of how wet my feet are and cold they are.
Right, it just becomes slick in the shoe and you
Yeah.
can't. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Then, if you don't want to go with pop-up tarps or pop-up tents, sorry, or know how to build your own shelters, portable tarps. This is a 3x3. Oh, wait, sorry, this is actually a hammock.
Works.
But I mean, the
Isn't it?
sentiment is still the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tarps.
Tarp. Tarp. Sorry.
Grabbed the wrong one. Tarps are awesome. I mean, you can go anywhere.
Yeah.
Walmart, your local fucking stores anywhere near you. Big Five, Bass Pros, any feed store out there. You can go there, Wilco, then they'll have tarps. I mean, you get them as big as you want. They're brown, green, both the colors for camouflage. They'll keep you concealed and also keep you dry. And they're relatively cheap.
Right. It's one of those few things where you don't have to worry about the price and the brand and everything like that. A tarp is a tarp. They're all made out of the same material. They all do the same thing.
I'll disagree a little bit on that. There are some pretty weak tarps out there that I've used, but
Right, they're done within.
but
Working at the warehouse, tarps were one of the worst things to unload from the trucks. Because those things add up.
Yeah.
Like, the boxes would be bulging out, and it was impossible to stack them onto a pallet.
And that is also a con of a tarp, is tarps are heavy.
Yeah. This one, on the other hand, I love. It's very compact. 12 by 9 feet and 6 inches by 12 feet. And this is one of the smallest things I have in my backpack.
Which is enough to cover you and a buddy. I mean, that's plenty big to cover you. If it is a little bit chintzy and cheap and isn't full, can rip easily, you can always fold that over and still have plenty of room for just yourself or even you and a buddy.
Yeah. What else was I thinking? Yeah, and going back to Nate's whole shelter thing, if you don't have shelter and you need to stay dry and warm, get that layer between the ground. My preference, if you don't have the padding or one of those blow-up inflatable beds, use foliage around you. Look at your surroundings. Get that base layer, throw a tarp on top of it, throw a tarp above you to keep the rain off.
Yeah, that would work. Foliage usually is waterproof. I mean, there's a few things that aren't waterproof with foliage, but most plants in the Pacific Northwest usually are pretty waterproof and will keep that moisture running downward. So that's always a good option. And I didn't even think about that one, so that's a good point Connor made.
Right.
Another way to make a fire in dire need, because again, it's going to be based on mission, and also if you want to be seen, usually a fire is not really a thing you want, but if you absolutely have to, if you find a big rock you can hide under and it will keep shit, flowing, stuff like that, you can always, something you should always keep in your bag anyways is a flare. And a flare, one or two, I would keep two personally, maybe possibly three. One can be used for signaling if you need to signal, and one can be used to start a fire in dire need, because a flare is going to catch anything on fire, even wet. So it's always an option.
The best part about flares are waterproof.
Yep. And then also with creating fires and stuff like that, the best thing to do to not be seen, but if you still need to make a fire, because smoke is going to travel far. But if you have a huge canopy of trees, what you can do is build a fire right underneath the tree, and that smoke will actually follow the trunk of the tree all the way up and go out the top instead of smoking out everything around you. So instead of sending a smoke signal to whoever is looking for you or whoever you're trying to hide from or whoever you're trying to find, dig a hole right next to a tree, root, put your fire in there. Keep the fire small. Keep the fire in the ground so it's not too bright to everything around you, and you can stay warm and still keep that coverage.
I think that about covers it for
ways to stay
dry and fire. I think now we'll move on to nutrition and water purification with me and Nate.
Yeah, so water purification is also a very critical step. The biggest part about water purification, and I think that a lot of people don't think about, it's not as simple as I'm going to throw 3 water bottles in my backpack and I'll be good to go for the next 3 days. Because you're not. When you're moving, especially like you're going to be if you're bugging out, you need to consume at least half a gallon of water in a day. That's the minimal amount of water that your body needs before it's going to start depleting itself from its own cells and materials to provide that hydration, which is something you don't want. So you're going to need at least a half gallon of water a day. The problem with that is enough water for 3 days is going to weigh about 20 pounds. That's what you're going to have to keep in your pack for the minimal amount. Ideally, you want to be at a gallon a day. So that's going to put you up to about 35, 40 pounds at a gallon of water per day.
Just a quick,
Minimal.
just a quick education. A gallon of water weighs approximately 18, or not 18, sorry, 8.14 pounds. So that adds up pretty quick. A 5 gallon bucket is about 42 pounds. So just kind of take that into consideration of with your weight and stuff in your bug out bag that is going to add a shit ton of weight, especially with hydration packs in your backpack.
And then, so now this is really knowing your climate. Going back to Nevada, if you're in Nevada, there's not a lot of natural resources to get water. There isn't. So knowing that, you're going to have to know that you're going to have to put in the extra weight to carry the water with you on hand. That's something you have to prepare for. In the Pacific Northwest, we don't deal with that. We have a lot of freshwater rivers, lakes, creeks, places to get water. The problem with that is that water's dirty. It contains viruses, bacteria, things that can make you sick. So that's where we go into water purification techniques. There's a couple different ways to do this. The first one is going to be the most cheapest and cost efficient, and it's going to be called aqua tabs. What they are is it's a little dissolvable tab you put in your water, give it about 30 minutes to work, and it'll make all of that bacteria and virus in the water go away. This is most commonly used with a water purification bottle because it has a filter in it to sift the dirt out, however, letting the minerals pass through.
Like this right here.
Like that right there. So that water bottle is going to be best used with an aqua tab. You can use just a filtration water bottle. It does catch about 91% of bacteria in the water, but that does let another 9% get through. So that's where that aqua tab comes into play. That's going to be the best combo to use there. Aqua tabs are super lightweight. I think 100 tablets weighs 3 to 4 ounces. So you could throw in 400 tablets, have way more than enough, and you're not even at half a pound yet. So that's going to be a really critical part. You can also buy 100 tablets of them for $14. So that's very cost efficient, small, lightweight, not something you have to really be too concerned about. The other one is, so I'm going to go purely based on a brand here. This is a brand that I like for this. They have a lot of good reviews and their stuff works. It's called a Sawyer water filtration device. It's a mini compact thing. It's less than 6 inches long. And you put a tube in the lake and you put a tube in your water bottle and it will slowly filter it through. This will catch 99.999% of virus, bacteria, and also sift out all the dirt while still letting the minerals pass through. These are a little bit more, they cost a little bit more. On the cheap end, you're looking $30. For a full-size one, you're looking about $100. But the full-size one is 9 inches long compared to the 6 inches long. The mini one takes about 45 minutes to do a gallon of water. They are capable of doing 5,000 gallons of water per day. So way more than what you would need. But that's good to know. You stop by, you have to fill up your water bottle. It's going to take 10 minutes to fill it up, but you have fresh, clean water. Put it back in your pack. Weighs a pound. You're good to go. So those are really going to be the two main ways. Like I said, you can use just a filtration water bottle. I don't like the fact that a filtration water bottle only does 91%. I don't want to gamble my life off of getting a bacterial infection because I only filtered out 91% of the bacteria. So, filtration water bottles, I'm not too familiar with the prices. I want to say cheap one, you're looking about $30. That's only going to filter out about 60 to 70%. All the way up to a higher end one, you're looking anywhere from that $60 to $100 range. That's going to get you up to that 91 to 93% effectiveness.
Yeah, and those, I mean, with the aqua tabs, is the aqua tabs iodine?
Yeah, so they're going to be an iodine base.
They are
They,
iodine based.
they contain other products inside of there along with the iodine to help the process, but their
Hmm.
main part is iodine.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you can't find the aqua tablets, there is just straight iodine tablets that you can purchase, and that will do the same thing. You know, you put one, two, three tablets in a gallon of water in your back, you know, in your camel pack, whatever. Let it sit, dissolve, and then you're ready to go. Kills all the bacteria. Um,
And
camel,
then
go ahead.
uh, for $20, you can buy a box of it's called a water testing strip. I think it's $20 for 100 strips, and the best way to use those is after you run it through. Obviously, if you're pulling from a pond or a creek or something like that that doesn't have a whole lot of water flow going through it, these are going to be critical because after you run them through, if you put this water strip in and it tells you that it still contains 30% bacteria, you're not going to want to drink it. Uh, it's a very cost efficient way to verify and make sure that the water you're drinking is clean.
Clean enough.
Yeah.
Tough.
Running water is always the best option. Um, where you see the water hitting rocks with white foam, foam. It's not gonna be foam. It's just water dispersing. Anyways, um, that's gonna be the cleanest area because it's hitting that rock and it's dispersing. Um, so that's gonna be the best area to kind of pull from. Mostly in the Pacific Northwest. Um, and I think other places that have rivers, like in, let's say Texas has some lakes with rivers running through them. The lake itself may not be clean, but the running water from that would be a better option because at least that's getting this. It's using the sediment and the natural vegetation to filter out some of those bacterias and some of those gross soot-like substances inside the water.
Right. And the whole point of this is now you have the ability to have more water than just what you're drinking. You have water to wash your hands off, take care of your hygiene, make sure that you're just taking care of yourself overall. Just because you're out in the woods for 3 days doesn't mean you need to be a fucking pig for 3 days.
Right.
Take care of
Cooking.
yourself, keep yourself clean, cooking with clean water, anything like that that you need to do. Having a way to have an unlimited amount of clean water is, I'm just going to use the word fulfilling. It's one thing you just don't have to worry about. You know, no matter how long I'm out here, I have access to clean water.
And another way you can get down and dirty, if you can fit it in your rucksack, in your pack, whatever, they have metal pots and heaters that you can bring with you. They're pretty compact, they're about this big, so probably like 10 inches. And you can just down and dirty boil water. That's going to be the best way to kill bacteria. It's going to be the best way to clean your water. And then on top of that, you could throw some tablets in it with it and make sure you are 100% okay to drink that water.
Right.
There's also charcoal options, which will kind of work the same as a, filter style flask or canteen. It's just going to use that charcoal to filter all of that gross debris and bacteria out of it.
Right.
Yeah, something that we were taught at the academy, we used water bottles, would cut like the quarter top off, flip it upside down, fill it with rocks, like different types of blades of grass, anything we could use to filter that water, and then fill up that bottom like 3/4 of a bottle and just repeat that process.
Yeah, that, and then you can also use science. I mean, if you have toilet paper or some type of paper like that that's going to grab water, you can always put your cup that you want the clean water in, have it empty.
Yeah.
You have your dirty cup higher up, and it's going to siphon, just like a siphon hose. It's going to siphon all that clean water through that paper towel, that tissue, whatever, and act as a filter itself and only put clean water in that. It's not going to be 100% clean. You're still going to need to kill some bacteria with tablets. Might as well spend $14, get those tablets, throw them in whenever you get a chance. But there's that can also be added on to the filtration methods.
Yeah, one of the things I like to keep in my bag, it's called a Pura bag. This will purify up to 2.5 gallons.
Jesus.
And it comes with these little bags of calcium what's the name of it? Hypochlorite. There we go. Calcium hypochlorite.
Big words get Connor sometimes.
It's okay.
Hey, science was not my strong suit.
It's a magic pill that makes my clean water more clean.
This is actually a powder.
Oh.
And this
So
will
it's
actually separate any debris that's in it and have that rise to the top.
Yeah, yep. Or have the
Wow.
water rise to have all the soot fall to the bottom and the water will stay up top.
This works the opposite way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so all the soot would go towards the top, and then you can filter out all the clean water through the bottom right here.
Okay, that's
Okay.
pretty cool.
So it's gravity filtered.
Nice.
Yeah, and it'll come with, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 packets, and each packet purifies 2.5 gallons.
It's pretty good.
Cool.
Right. So I think the biggest thing is, I mean, there's so many different ways to filter water. It's really figuring out which way that you want to do it. Whichever, if you want to break it down to which way is most cost efficient, what's most effective. We don't care about the price tag, so on and so forth. There's so many different ways, and you can combine multiple ways. That's the best part about it.
And that's the best option as well, is to be able to have multiple ways of purifying water, because you don't want to get those bacteria. You don't want to be, shitting water when you're out in the woods. Maybe you have to stay in the woods for a week or 2 weeks even. You don't want to get that illness and just be miserable the whole time.
That'll kill you just as fast as hypothermia.
That will kill you pretty quick, is getting an illness from, bacteria and viruses in the water.
So now we'll roll into the next topic that goes hand in hand with water, and that's food. Food is a tricky one because a lot of people are going to disagree about what they think is best and most efficient. It really comes down to doing your own research on it. For me, I like MREs. They are small, compact. They contain a lot of nutrients. They contain the correct calorie diet that you're going to need to survive this type of client. If you don't want to do MREs, then it breaks down to different things. For the most part, if you're not doing an MRE to sustain your calorie diet and to keep on taking in the correct amount of carbohydrates that you're going to need throughout this process, you're going to need to make sure that you have a pot, because you're going to need pastas, rice. You need the ability to make meat. Everything that you can't sustain or that you can sustain from an MRE, you have to be able to just make for yourself. Along with that, fruits, vegetables, all that kind of stuff, that plays right into the diet.
Yeah, along with that, you got to also put into account how fast things are going to go bad. MREs are going to last a while. Usually they have a 30-year lifespan. Fresh food, like pizza, it's only going to last, maybe 2-3 days before it starts going bad, So you got to always put into account cheeses, which cheese is very calorical and it's very high in protein. One slice of cheese is roughly 120 calories and 7 grams of protein. So the amount of grams that it takes for you to eat and what you're getting back from it is pretty good. That being said, I personally would eat, I'd bring peanut butter. Peanut butter is going to last a long time.
Yeah.
In colder climates, like freezing climates, it's going to be very hard to get out. But peanut butter is very calorical Peanut butter has lots of protein. Um, and peanut butter is great. If you're allergic to peanut butter,
Go fuck yourself.
Sucks.
it sucks to suck. No,
Sucks to suck.
I mean, I'm sorry.
It does suck.
If you're
Peanut
lactose intolerant, be more tolerant.
Very high in fats too is what you really need in a survival situation like that. Protein and fat. That is what's gonna keep you sustained.
protein,
Longest.
fat, calories, carbs. Carbs break down. Yes, carbs are sugar. Everyone that's on keto, shut the fuck up. We know. But carbs break down to ATP, which is going to be those sugars that you need to rejuvenate yourself. Carbs are awesome. I mean, you're going to need more calories being out in the woods for 3 days than you ever would just sitting at home for or working out every single day. You will need more calories being out in the woods in the cold, all that shit. You'll need more. So eat those extra carbs, eat those extra calories. You got to take that into consideration that you're going to need more calories than you need regularly to be able to be sufficient in the woods, because you're going to be walking, you're going to be sweating, you're going to be this, that, the other. You're going to be shivering, stuff like that, and that's all going to play a role in how many calories you need to intake, along with proteins and carbs and all that. So,
and do some research into your local areas. What fruits grow naturally? What vegetables grow naturally? Like, find berries are great. Apples are great. Anything like that, you need those natural sugars for your body. If you're in Idaho, I'm sorry, you might die. Potatoes aren't that good. I mean, it's just...
Whoa.
yeah,
Sorry,
potatoes.
Calm down.
What the potatoes are like pure starch, bro. Like you will get so much. You get so full off that. I do see what you potatoes.
but you're only gaining one aspect.
Yeah, potatoes are not very sufficient in what your body needs to survive. Neither are berries. I mean, berries do have their aspect of being good with sugars and stuff like that, but they're not very calorical, and they don't have carbs. They're
Right.
It's
not going to provide you a lot of substance.
No.
But it's knowing what
you can eat.
What part affects you in which way. Those natural sugars will help your energy level. They won't really help your calorie intake, and they won't really help your diet at all. But that's where other things come into play. So it's really knowing what grows in your area and what's going to benefit you.
Yeah. What people seem to overlook is most animals in the wild are not very fatty.
Mm-mm.
Fish aren't, deer aren't.
Fish is actually pretty fatty, depending on what area. Yeah. Very fatty. You would rather have a fish than a rabbit. Rabbit really has no...
You could die from lack of fat.
Yeah.
Like, good in protein, but you will start to eat yourself alive because there's
doesn't
not
really have a
much
lot of
nutrients.
nutrition to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I would much rather have a fish.
Any sort of bird, they will help you a lot. That is they're very oily and greasy, but they have a lot of fat and nutrients inside of them.
Poultry is very good.
I know in the Pacific Northwest, ducks are huge there. That is a great form of nutrients. And ducks are very easy to pluck and cook. So,
I mean, if you're a vegan or whatever, you're gonna fucking die. Just what it is. You're not gonna live in the wilderness or in a bug-out situation or an apocalypse situation. You are not gonna survive because you cannot be so picky. I'm pretty picky eating-wise, but I eat meat, so I'm okay.
This dude doesn't like Mexican food.
Even our whole point on it was, even if we are picky eaters and we're vegetarians and we're vegans, we're also willing to accept the fact that if it comes down to a bug out situation, an apocalypse, anything like that, we know the change we're going to have to make to survive. Everybody needs to be willing to make that change.
I hate fish.
You're going to have to eat some things you don't fucking like.
Yeah.
Deal with it and move on.
I hate fish, but if I run out of my food that I packed, I'm going to end up eating fish. Fish is very good for you. It's like, it's same with birds. They are very oily. They have fats. They have a lot of protein. It's just, they're not very or like caloric, but still, it's, you're giving your body a lot of sustenance that it needs. Another thing is nuts. Find out what nuts grow in your area, because nuts are very good, very calorical, very filling. If you live in an area there's peanuts around, go take that peanut field or something. Acorns, shit like the walnuts, all that stuff. They are very filling and very nutrients filled. Along with berries. I mean, if you want, you can get some nuts from around the area, get some berries from around the area that you've done some research on, and do your research, because salmon berries look a lot like another berry that's poisonous in the Pacific Northwest. So do your research and know exactly what leaves are on berry types, stuff like that. It's going to be base to base, and it's also going to be area to area. What's in Eastern Washington and Northern Washington are going to be completely different. So you got to remember that even in those areas that are the same, of Washington, Oregon, California, Idaho, things can change, within a matter of 100 miles. So
yeah. No, I'm kind of with Nate on the whole MRE thing, because they, like, the ones I have, very small. All you gotta do is add boiling water, makes 4 servings. That's enough to last you a couple days. Put 2 or 3 of those in your bag, you're pretty set. And
But
it
the
gives
best
you
part
all the
is
nutrients you need.
they're also designed to be eaten dry if need be.
Exactly.
So if you
not gonna
don't have
taste great.
access to boiling water, you can eat them. Right? It's not going to taste great, but it's going to
But
provide you all the
beggars
nutrients.
can't be
and calories you
choosers.
need.
to be fair, most MREs have heating pads for boiling that water. And,
Right.
and it doesn't take much. MREs, you do not need to fill that much. I mean, even a splash of water, I mean, I'm talking like a cap full, will heat up your MRE.
Yeah.
So it does not take much water. It doesn't need to be, I mean, preferably it does need to be clean, but it doesn't always need to be clean, because it is individually wrapped and sealed. So you should be good to use whatever water you have. Also, most Walmarts, in at least my area, which should be everywhere else as well that has a Walmart, but they do have buckets and gallon size of dried fruit, vegetables, even hamburger meat. They have same thing as MREs. They have breakfast platters, supper platters, in big gallon things that will last 32 days, last 15 days, and they have a shelf life of 30 to 40 years. So you can have that now just in case, and have it still last that time, because it's a minimum of 30 years. It might last longer, because that's just
the
how the
ones
rating is.
I have, the brand is ReadyWise. They have a shelf life of 25 years.
Yep. Which is good, because, I mean, same with chicken noodle soup. It's got a pretty long shelf life. Canned beans, stuff like that, which is always good to have.
Yeah, but it weighs.
Yeah,
See,
those
that's the
will
thing,
start
it
to weigh you
weighs.
down.
Those will weigh you
Right.
down, but
Plus, you don't always have a can opener.
I would hope
That's true.
you do. That should be something. There's going to be minor stuff that we don't include that you should do your research on yourself,
Or, use a knife.
or use a
or
knife.
stone.
Right. There are such things as like bushcraft knives that are meant for durability and less for sharpness.
Yeah, more as a
Um,
blunt, sharp object.
Right. Something that'll actually like help you. It's not designed to open cans, but if you are in a dire situation and you need what's in the can, then
It can,
hacking at it for a good 10 minutes would.
if need be, you can always shoot your can open.
Right.
I mean,
A little bit
to
of
be
lead.
fair, if your knife can't open up a little aluminum can, you need a new knife.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if they're aluminum. I think they're steel, buddy.
No, they're aluminum cans.
They are aluminum.
I'll go grab one right now. If a magnet sticks to it, you guys
Go
owe me,
grab it.
You guys owe me $1.
Go grab it right now.
Hold on.
$1 in today's economy, say, you should just ask them in MRE.
That's true.
I will give you the MREs in my backpack right now.
Okay, here. I gotta find a magnet. Oh, and I have one. Okay. Hold on. Keep on with the convo.
I feel like we've covered food and water filtration pretty good at this point. I mean, it's really
Yeah.
doing your own research on what you think you need, and going over everything. Maybe buy an MRE, eat it dry, eat it with some water, see how you like it both ways. I mean, if it's obviously if you have the ability to prepare to where it's something you don't absolutely hate, that's going to be the best way to go. If you eat it and it tastes like absolute garbage, it looks like we're about to find out if this is steel or aluminum.
This is magnetic, right?
Yes.
Shit. It's magnetic on the bottom.
Okay, so it's
on the
half
bottom?
steel, half
Yeah.
aluminum.
Yeah, it's just and the top. Look at that. Wait.
Fabian was right. Somebody just lost a couple MREs.
No, it's all magnetic. It's all magnetic.
Bullshit.
I don't know how well. See? It's magnetic.
There's no way. That
It's
has to
fucking
be aluminum.
steel.
When the fuck?
They've all,
I have always thought those have always been aluminum. When the fuck did they change to steel?
they've always been steel, my guy.
No.
Fucking
Bullshit.
Fallout, my guy. Fallout.
Thank you, Too Thick, Too... Ah, that's Morgan. God damn it.
That's Morgan. Yeah, dude, I didn't even have to text her. She just brought it up. She walked up and she's like, "Here you go."
She's
Oh,
watching the
boy.
stream.
You
She's
MREs
like,
I
I'm gonna
love.
help my I'm gonna help my fiance win this argument.
So, Save, you just won yourself whey milk alternative, hearty tortilla soup, and cheesy macaroni and MREs.
That also reminds me, if you're not lactose retarded, whey protein, chlorocal, and obviously protein, you can bring that, and that will be a huge beneficial factor for nutrients. You can put it in water, you can eat it, you can put your berries in with it and eat it like that, whatever.
Bring some Wheaties.
Don't do anything with creatine, because there are protein powder with creatine. Creatine stores in your muscle. It helps water store in your muscles, so that will dehydrate you a lot. So you will need to take more water intake in, which is not something in this situation you want to have to do, because water is going to be scarce, whatever be the issue. So nothing with creatine, but if you can get whey protein powder, you can put that in whatever you want.
Another thing, kind of going back to like water purification just a little bit, is purifying water from bacteria is all fine and good. But you also need to realize that you're filtering a lot of the essential mineral that is good for you. So when you're hiking and you've done this for more than 2 weeks, you're going to realize that your vitamin count is going to go way down, because most of the stuff comes from water and food. Like, I don't know, think like cantaloupe, cabbage, kind of like leafy greens mostly. All the funny enough, all the different colors in food actually have like their own vitamin count and value. Most GMO foods nowadays don't have that similar count, so it's kind of disgusting. GMO foods are just terrible because it's all like fluff and none of the
Nutrients.
essential nutrients that you would normally get in homegrown or livestock. Because there's GMO eggs, there's GMO chickens out there.
Mm-hmm.
They're not good for food. They're good for fat and good for society.
Yeah.
So keep in mind when you're filtering and you're doing all these things, like even though a creek or a pond may be disgusting and may hold bacteria, there's a good
sorry,
chance
a
you
what?
could get.
We need to pause here and address the fact that you just
I'm
called
sorry,
it
a
a
fucking
crick.
what?
A crick?
Sorry, they
You
call
mean
it
a
crick in
creek?
Montana, creek. I apologize.
Heathen?
That's a holdover from Montana. I lived there. Everybody calls it a crick, not a creek.
No, they do not.
You sure about that? I've lived there for a year.
It's regional there.
I want to get past. I want to try to get past the fact that you lived in Washington for 18 years, Montana for 1.
My
and all
dad
of a sudden
always
that
said crick.
changed your
Yeah, I
creek
know.
to crick.
Okay.
It's a vibe for him. Leave him alone.
Okay. That's fucked.
That's good.
Saying that is not a vibe, and I wholeheartedly.
He watched 2 seasons of Yellowstone, and now he's fucking...
No, I have never seen a single episode of Yellowstone. Listen,
Well, you're missing out.
don't piss and shit out your vitamins. There might be a good. Okay, you come to a rock spring, and it's fairly clean, and there's a possibility for you to get sick. Life is about taking chances. You can't always purify your water. You have to ration out some of these things, and it's good for you in some cases to take a chance on something that you would not normally do, like drinking unpurified water. It gives you some of the minerals back. I mean, unless you want to start licking rocks, which people actually do that. Stupid. And there's a lot more bacteria and problems that come with that by itself, but keep in mind, like, there's not going to be a Walmart that has like zinc and iron tablet for you to take.
Magnesium and stuff.
Right, magnesium, or even I don't know, like melatonin to help you sleep. Like all this stuff is regulated in the environment around you. It's not always a pickup at Walmart.
Yeah.
You're just gonna have to. Stupid. You're literally sometimes just gonna have to eat grass like a fucking cow. Hopefully, no one's around to see you do that, because honestly, it's a bit retarded if you have other means of food. But to just get you your vitamins back.
Yep.
You're not gonna last very long if you don't have those vitamins.
And a good point that we should briefly kind of discuss before we come to a close is prepare your body. Go out there, train like we suggest on everything. Practice makes perfect. Training makes perfect. But you need to train your body.
I would actually like to say practice doesn't make perfect. It makes permanent. If you're not training correctly, you're not going to survive that long.
That's fair.
It makes permanent, not perfect.
And now would be the time to make the mistakes, you know?
Yeah.
Go on a one night bug out. Figure out if the spot that you picked out on the map is a good spot, or if it's not, if it's too far from any source of water, if it's too far of a hike, any of those conditions. Figure out the failures now, so that way you can correct them. So that way, come the time that you have to go on a 3-day, a 5-day, a 2-week, a 1-month bug out, you've already worked out the bugs. You already know how it works. Your body's conditioned to go into that mindset. Now is the perfect time to figure it out.
And like the great Grantham stated, if you're not fit, you're gonna fucking die.
And
If you
Grantham we
ain't
trust.
fit, you're gonna fucking die.
Yeah. I'm not saying you gotta be a fucking bodybuilder, but
Don't be a bodybuilder.
yeah, that's probably not a good idea. You're probably gonna.
I'd rather be a bodybuilder than a CrossFitter.
I mean, you might look good in all the gear, but fuck, you're gonna hate your life about 6 hours in.
Yeah.
I already hate my life, buddy pal.
But
Well, you ain't no fucking bodybuilder.
train your body.
Neither are you.
Train your body. Again, with those repetitions of going out there, your body's gonna become acclimated. Start running more. Start doing stuff that's walking through the woods just in general, because walking through woods is different than walking on trails. You can go trails, on trails all day long. That is not going to 20 miles on a trail is not the same as 20 miles going through the brush. You're going to have a lot more shit to go through, and you need to train your body, your legs, all that stuff. You also need to train your immune system. Stop being so fucking dependent on, vaccines. I'm not going to be like that, but don't be so dependent on, going out and getting your booster shot for the flu, that shit's not going to be out there if shit really hits the fan. You're not going to be able to get vaccines. You're not going to be able to, get perfect water. Start drinking out of the tap. Just put your cup in there. Start drinking out of the tap. Build those natural immunities to your surrounding areas. Go drink from a river, and now, like Nate was saying, get the bugs out now, literally. Maybe you go drink from the area that you want to bug out in, and you get sick. But you can be sick at home right now and not back then, or not when you need to. So train your body immune-wise and physically. Also, mentally. It's going to be hard to be out for a month of no phone, the shit we're not used to. No phones, no television, no shit like no electronics at all, no cars, no
podcast.
No podcast, no getting from A to B instantly like we're all so used to. Get out there and train that body, that mind, that immunity, and just prepare yourself for shit that's might not. We don't know. Russia's been saying some shit lately, so we don't know. Red Dawn might happen. Who knows? But be prepared, because if you aren't, you're not going to survive. And if you do by chance survive a month or two, someone who's been doing it for years might sneak up on you and take all your shit. Who knows? You probably won't catch them. You're not going to catch a dude who's been in the wilderness for 2 years if you've never been in the wilderness.
Because God forbid something like this does happen, it is going to be the wild, wild west.
Mm-hmm.
All rules and laws of civilization will go out the window.
But that is a topic for the next time.
We will catch you guys next weekend, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This was a good podcast here. We covered about half of our list of a bug out. We still got another half to go, along with a couple other things that we'll talk about. Thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate each and every one of you that have been here this entire time. Thank you for attending Operation Impart's podcast.
Catch you on part 2.
See ya.
Stay frosty.